Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. October 25th, 2017.
206 here on the great WRKO. Okay. I've done it the last 2 hours. I'm going to do it one more time. As you know, I always like to just come in, do my monologue, and then obviously start taking calls. Before I get to this monologue, however, please, Kuhner Country, a call to action to all of you. I have a fresh column up. It exposes Elizabeth Warren. In particular, the fact that she openly lied and made up a story about being sexually harassed / assaulted when she was a young faculty member when she went on Chuck U, Chuck Todd, Meet the Mess. It's a story that the local media is desperately trying to suppress. Please, I urge all of you, go to WRKO.com. It's Kuhner's Corner right there. Elizabeth Warren lied about being sexually harassed. Let's get the truth out there. Download it, read it, email it, send it off to your friends, colleagues, family members, because she needs to be held accountable and she needs to be exposed for the incorrigible, pathological liar that she is. Okay. This is a local story, but I'm telling you it's going to go national, or it's already starting to go viral. It may go national. It's an unbelievable story, and I want to give a hat tip to Boston 25 News for having broken the story. There are over 1,700 sex offenders. In fact, if you want to be specific, 1,769 sex offenders, they're gone. They're gone in the state of Massachusetts. 1,769 sex offenders are now living in the shadows. The state auditor came out with an audit of the Sex Offender Registry Board, and to her utter shock and horror, she found out that the Sex Offender Registry Board has lost track. They've lost account of over 1,700 sex offenders. They don't know where they are. They don't know where they live. They don't know what their addresses are. They have no idea where they've gone. Like, they're gone. They're missing. So, in theory, I mean, obviously it's highly unlikely, but, in theory, I don't know. My neighbor could be a sex offender. Your neighbor could be a sex offender. Brittany's neighbor could be a sex offender. How do you lose track of allegedly registered sex offenders? We're talking about rapists. We're talking about people who have sexually assaulted women. Some of them pedophiles, child molesters, child abusers, and you just lose track of them? Like this time, well, they're on the registry and they're supposed to be registered, but, I don't know. We lost track of them. Well, how did you lose track of them? Well, we just weren't updating our records, and, sometimes when they move, they don't actually tell us where they've moved to, and so literally, I'm not kidding, you now have people coming out, the secretary in charge of this saying, well, we don't have an investigative arm at the Sex Offender Registry Board, so we can't investigate when some sex offender, let's just say, I don't know, a child molester who molested little Johnny, and he decides to move, say from, I don't know, he decides to move from, let's say, Mansfield, and he wants to move in, say, to Brookline. And, well, he didn't register with us. So because he didn't register with us, we can't track him down. In fact, it is so pathetic that the state auditor herself, and to give her credit, she was genuinely horrified, Susan Bump, actually said that some of them relocated to another state. And the Sex Offender Registry Board, this is just to show you how backwards they are over there, couldn't even do a basic cross-referencing with other computers from other state agencies. Her staff had to Google. They went on Google. Let's just say, I don't know, Joe Sixpack. Okay, child molester, Joe Sixpack, blah, 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 blah. Let's Google. What do I get? Ooh, he's in Kentucky. Okay, so he moved from Massachusetts to Kentucky. Okay, at least we know where he is in Kentucky. So let's contact the people in Kentucky and let them know. You know Joe Sixpack on Green Lane? Yeah, Green Lane in Louisville is a child molester. Convicted child molester. I don't know. You may want to tell the people who live on the street and his neighbors that there's a child molester living next door. You just may want to tell them. This is pathetic. I mean, really, this is pathetic. And I've got to say this. Because if I'm not here to speak the truth, what's the point of me being behind the microphone? I don't know what it is about this state in particular, but when it comes to sex offenders, when it comes to pedophiles, when it comes to child molesters, I don't know if it's the water. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the air. I don't know what's going on. But there seems to be a particular magnet for them to come to this state. And I'm not just talking about the Catholic Church. It's in the Department of Children and Families. It's on many schools. It's across social levels. There is, for whatever reason, this inclination to either cover it up or to turn a blind eye or to just not take it seriously. I do not understand what the reason is, but I'm telling you, in no other state are they this lax and this permissive when it comes to, take your pick, child molesting priests, when it comes to social workers who are told about children being abused or about women being sexually assaulted. It's the only other place is Hollywood. I'm not kidding. Where they just don't care about sexual abuse or sexual assault. Unless you're Elizabeth Warren and you're just making the whole thing up. Okay? But let that go. 1,700 sex offenders convicted, not alleged, convicted sex offenders? And you just lose track? Like, you don't know? And what to me is even more remarkable is this is the state where they're always, and I'm patting myself on the shoulder now, okay, for effect. So there they are, patting themselves on the shoulder. We're for women's rights. They all have their little pea hats and they're big, tough feminists. Well, what about the women who are raped? What about the victims of sexual assault? What about the families whose children have been molested or abused? What about the children themselves? Like, don't you care? To me, it's the corruption in this state that I just find absolutely stunning. It's the one thing again and again and again. When people ask me, Jeff, what's life like living in Massachusetts or Boston? I go, believe it or not, the people are themselves very nice. They have a heart of gold. Where we live in the southern Massachusetts, right there near Gillette Stadium, beautiful foliage, beautiful, nice place. Honestly, a lot of green. There's a lot to recommend the state of Massachusetts. The beaches, the museums, there's a lot here. But it's the corruption. And it's not just the corruption. It's the tolerance and the indifference towards the corruption. And so we now have another scandal. Again, where's the Boston Globe? Where's the Boston Herald? Where's Channel 4? Where's Channel 5? Where's Channel 7? Where's Channel 10? I want to give a big hat tip to Boston 25 News, because at least they had the guts to break this story. But again, for the most part, the silence from the media, the silence from the political class is absolutely deafening. And so here is what I think now. If you're really, look, when you have this many sex offenders as we do, I think now it's time that we start to really crack down. And if you're a sex offender and they've lost track of you, okay, you're a convicted sex offender, and you move, and for whatever reason, we don't know where you've moved to, I think their assets should be immediately frozen. I don't care. You've paid your debt to society. I paid my debt. I'm back out on the streets. I don't care. You're a sex offender. And generally, the recidivism rate among rapists or child molesters or pedophiles is incredibly high. And so if you're registered and you're living, say, whatever, in Chelsea or Lowell or Saugus or take your pick, okay? And suddenly you move and we don't know where you've gone to and we've lost track of you, your assets should be frozen immediately, on the spot. To me, heads need to roll. Heads need to roll. How do you lose track of 1,700 sex offenders? I swear, only in the People's Republic of Massachusetts. Let's go to Anne in Waltham. Go ahead, Anne.
Yes, Jeff. I think one of the reasons that the sex offenders can't be found is that they are the ones who are in charge of registering themselves after they're sentenced. And not the judges. Nobody in the court does that. They are supposed to do that themselves. Now, what a crazy idea is that?
So basically it's all volunteer.
Yes. They have to do this on their own. Nobody does that for them.
That's incredible.
I know, and it's, everybody's talking about why they have all these people. Well, that's why. If you were a sex offender, would you register yourself? I don't think so.
Well, and not only that, Anne, if I knew these laws were on the books, I'll tell you which state I would come down to. I'd come down to Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I'm going to molest kids or whatever, hey.
Oh, yeah.
A, the judges are easy on you. Number one, you're going to get a light sentence. And number two, when I'm released back out into the public, that's like trusting the fox to guard the hen house.
Yeah, exactly.
And thank you for that call. Well, now that's a big reason why. I'll tell you right now, if I was a pervert, if I was a pedophile, hello, Massachusetts. So, not only do I get a light sentence, basically a slap on the wrist, then when they let me out, hey, Jeff, you're going to register? You better believe it. I haven't found the place yet. But when I get a permanent place, hey, the first thing I'm going to do is register. Blank you. And I start scouting a school. And that's how they roll. Russ in Boston. Go ahead, Russ.
First of all, Jeff, let me talk about one of the disgusting things that are on the agenda with our Massachusetts State Senate. Right now, they're talking about letting drug dealers out of prison early.
Russ, can you please call back? Your cell phone connection is horrible. Annie in Chelsea. Go ahead, Annie.
Hello?
Annie, how are you?
Good, Jeff. I love you in a non-sexual way.
What's on your mind, Annie?
Jeff, I want an apology. No, I demand an apology from Jezebel Hillary Clinton for calling me, you know that word, that name.
You mean a deplorable? A deplorable?
Yeah.
That crook.
Now. The can of worm is open. See how they squirm. Does anybody know that dance, the worm?
Annie, thank you for that call. No, I know. Think of the chutzpah on that woman. That crook. That traitor. That criminal. That embezzler. That Benedict Arnold. And hold on. You're calling us deplorables. No, you're the most deplorable person on the planet. But let that go. 617-266-6868. Okay, Brittany, I know you want to weigh in. So you think that maybe a lot of these sex offenders, some of them could potentially just be homeless, and that's why they're not registering.
No, I just asked a question. I'm just like, hey, what if they're homeless? Could that be the reason for it? that they're living on the streets, that, maybe they're into drugs or alcohol and they're homeless. They're living in a shelter. We don't know about it. Maybe that's why.
Well, I mean, they could register at the shelter. They could say, if you need to reach me, that's where I hang out.
Again, but if it's voluntary, are they going to? If they're living on the streets or if they're living in your nearby park or something?
Well, that's the problem. You see, it shouldn't be voluntary.
Exactly.
I think you nailed it. It should be mandatory.
Absolutely.
And that's the problem. You see, the problem with Massachusetts in a nutshell is that they put the rights of criminals over the victims. That's the fundamental sickness, I think, in Massachusetts society. Just my opinion. John, you're up next. Go ahead, John.
Jeff, I love the show. You're a true patriot.
Thank you, John.
Jeff, bottom line is the reason that this is like this, we're finding ourselves in this position, is a few years ago, the Supreme Judicial Court of our lovely state came out with a ruling and said that if you're homeless, that you don't have to register the same way that people who have an address have to register. So by law, they're required, as homeless, yes, it's voluntary, to register every year. Once a year, they're required to report to the local police and register. But because they're homeless and they don't have an address, the Supreme Judicial Court said, well, we won't worry about you then. We'll just, you do what you have to do.
John, let me ask you, because you're obviously it says on the board that you're a police officer. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay. Anyway, thank you, John, for calling. I appreciate it. So, as a member of law enforcement, then let me ask you the $64,000 question.
Go
Say
ahead,
Jeff Kuhner, just for the sake of argument, okay?
Sure.
Jeff
Yep.
Kuhner. No. Let's make something we can believe. Bill Clinton is convicted of molesting a child. Okay?
Yeah.
He's convicted in Massachusetts. He molested a kid. Bill Clinton is released, let's say, 2 years later. Bill Clinton now allegedly is homeless. Okay? All the Clinton Foundation money, Hillary's off to jail. They've confiscated all the money. So he's now homeless. Even though Bill Clinton molested a child, is Bill Clinton required to, in any way, is he mandated to let us know where he is? Or if he claims homelessness, we don't have to know where he is?
If he claims homelessness, Jeff, no, because the SJC said that would be a burden on people that are homeless.
Wow. Even though he could potentially be a recidivist and prey on another child.
Correct.
Wow. Ay. John, thank you for that call.
Anytime, Jeff. Love the show.
God bless you, Joe. Ay. Look at these moonbat judges, huh? Well, I asked the question, what's in the water? It's not in the water. It's what's on the bench. That's why Massachusetts has so many freaking sex offenders. 228 here on the great WRKO. Okay, huge story, and I want to credit Boston 25 News for having the guts to break it. The Sex Offender Registry Board now has a huge public safety failure. The state auditor reveals over 1,700 sex offenders. They're unaccounted for. That we don't know where they are. They're missing. You can text us 680-680. This is from 603. Jeff, liberals want to take 300 million guns off the streets and have sanctuary cities with thousands, actually it's millions, of illegal immigrants who may be criminals. But they can't even keep track of 1,700 sex offenders? How much sense does that make? Liberalism is a mental disorder. 781. Jeff, where is Maura the Horror Healy through all of this? Unreal. Well, she's still focused on bathrooms. This is from 617. Jeff, I think they've all moved to Groton since all are welcome. Touche, 617. Susan in Brookline. Go ahead, Susan.
Hi, Jeff. I wish you were on all day.
Oh, thank you, Susan.
Listen, let's not forget the communities of like Wellesley, Dover, Duxbury. You're mentioning some of these other towns really quickly. I know you were just trying to make a point, but, they are everywhere. And I work in real estate, and they are everywhere. They are everywhere. And they are unaccounted for. It's their own personal responsibility to register, to stay on top of their registration within the state. Now, why would they do that if they were planning on diddling the little girl next door that they just moved into this mansion in Wellesley? They're going to do it. And they're going to do it no matter where they are, whether they're homeless, whether they're at the Ritz, whether they're somewhere in between. They're going to do it. And this liberalism is killing America and definitely killing our state. And you're right. Where the hell is Maura Healey with her head up her butt?
Susan, bingo. You hit the nail right on the head. Okay, my friends, coming up next, stunning new numbers from the Census Bureau. You're not going to believe how many Americans born in America, do not speak English. Should English now become the official language? Should we make it the official language of the United States? We're going to have that story in debate. And we've got the latest on Trump's reaction to the dossier. Let's take it to Evan Heidenrich in the newsroom. 2:37 here on the great WRKO. Okay, let me ask you this. Is it time to finally make English the official language of the United States? The reason why I ask is there is a stunning Census Bureau report. Terrence Jeffrey, a good friend of mine, at CNS News, has just published a story. In fact, Tucker Carlson, I think, referenced it yesterday on his show. And here are some of the numbers. In California, which is the most populous state in the union, there's about 39 million people living in California. They're the highest. 45% of the people 5 years of age and older. So 5 years of age and older, 45% in California do not speak English at home. At home, they speak no hable inglés, no comprende amigo. They do not speak English at home at all. Texas was second. 36% do not speak English at home. New Mexico third. 35% do not speak English at home. New Jersey is fourth. 32% don't speak English at home. And New York, 31% speak no English at all at home. Now, you may be wondering, where is the People's Republic of Massachusetts? Well, we're pretty much up there. We're in the top 10. We're at number 10. In Massachusetts, 24% of all people living in Massachusetts do not speak English at home. 24. Now, I asked this of Brittany during the break, so let me ask you. Which state do you think has the lowest or the smallest percentage of residents who do not speak English at home? I mean, take a guess. Take a guess. Honestly, my first guess would have probably been like Minnesota, Idaho. That would have been my guess, to be frank. It's actually, it's West Virginia. 2.5% of residents there do not speak English at home. Just above them is Montana, then Mississippi, then Alabama, and then North Dakota, and then Kentucky. So I guess in some states, how do I say this? They encourage people to speak English. Now, what's also stunning in the Census Bureau numbers is that in America itself, overall, 10% of all people living in America do not speak English. They just do not. They don't speak any English. Forget not at home. They don't speak any English. In California, 20% of all residents in California speak no English whatsoever. And the shocking number, the 20% in California, like no English at all, not a word, no hable inglés. 10% in America, no hable inglés. They speak no English, none, not a word. Half of them, were born in the United States. So what we're now doing, I'm not talking immigrants. I'm now talking second-generation Americans who are born and raised in America, and they speak absolutely no English. None. Zero. Nada. So the question now is, what do we do? Because language is a key part of culture. The reason why you want everybody speaking English is because if you have one language, then you have a common culture. A common language leads to a common culture. A common culture leads to a unified country. It leads to a common country. If you have people who are not just being brought in by the tens of millions and not being assimilated, but their children, and they're being born and raised and not speaking a word of English, you've got a major problem on your hands. That means you're not assimilating immigrants, and you're not assimilating their children. And you're going to start to see now huge ethnic enclaves in parts of the country that literally cannot even communicate with other members of the country. It's going to lead eventually to balkanization. And we're one of the few countries in the world that actually does not have an official language. For example, in France, the official language is French. In Russia, the official language is Russian. In Hungary, the official language is Hungarian. In Japan, the official language is Japanese. In Mexico, for example, many countries in Latin America, even though they have, for example, substantial native Indian minorities, they have their own dialects, but the official language is Spanish. Take Hungary. Hungary has a Slovakian population, a Serbian minority population. They will speak that language in their villages, but the official language is still Hungarian. Meaning, in schools, the kids all have to learn Hungarian. Everywhere you go, the signs have to be in Hungarian. If you're raised in a family where you don't know Hungarian or the family's not Hungarian, then the school will test you for proficiency in Hungarian. In other words, they are trying to assimilate all of their citizens or residents to be part of the country of Hungary. I'm just using Hungary as an example. Why is it that we in the United States, almost the exception, do not have an official language? Now, there are some countries, take Canada, has two official languages, French and English. Belgium has several official languages, French and Flemish. Switzerland has three official languages, German, Italian, and French. So there are some countries that have several languages as the official language, but they have official languages. We don't have an official language. For whatever reason, we haven't insisted on making English an official language. Now, call me crazy, but I think it's high past time that we made English the official language of America. It doesn't mean you can't speak other languages in the home. It's a free country. But what we're going to say is, by having English become the official language, is that here in America, we speak one language. It's English. It's our common language. It's our national language. Every child will be required to learn it. It's going to be the language of business. It's going to be the language of government. It's going to be the language of, say, government or social services. And so if we had an official language, then maybe this would help start to assimilate all of these immigrants that have been pouring into our country, not just the illegals, I'm talking about legal immigrants. And maybe if we start testing these kids and forcing them, say if they do come from homes where they don't speak English, saying, okay, fine, what's the language you speak at home? Okay, whatever, let's just say Spanish for the sake of argument. Fine, then we're going to require that you become proficient in English at school. And we're going to test you, grade after grade after grade after grade. So this way, your attachment is not to the country that your family left and to that culture, but it's going to be, the attachment's going to be to this country, to our culture, because you speak our common language. One nation, one culture, one people. And the key to this is having one language. I believe it's time to make English, finally, the official language of the United States of America. Agree, disagree, Should English be the official language of the land? 617-266-6868. Or should we just leave it the way it's always been? We use it. It's the prevalent language, but we don't encode it in law. I want to hear from you. Frank in Gloucester, you're up first. Go ahead, Frank.
Hey, до свидания, товарищ.
How are you, comrade?
How's that for an official language? Hey, thank you for what you do. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome, Frank. Welcome.
Thank you. I don't know what made you move up here to Massachusetts. I had my doubts about the future here, grave doubts, and I'm retired here, so it's but I got children and grandchildren, and boy, I wish I knew what was going on. Listen, the point I wanted to make was I'm a retired geologist. I was in the industry for 40 years, mostly working in the nuclear industry. There is plenty of uranium around. The fact that these mines get sold is notwithstanding, okay, and that was a terrible and heinous thing. But there is plenty to be had. We look for it in the United States in very different rocks than they do in Europe and in Asia. And when we start looking in the right place, we're going to find tons of it. But just so people don't worry.
Well, Frank, I want to ask you this because, I don't want to get off topic, but why would our government sell the Russians 20% of our strategic uranium reserves? According to them, our number one foe, that's what they've been telling us, our biggest foe. Why would we sell our biggest adversary and foe, according to them, 20% of our strategic uranium reserves? What sense does that make?
No matter what your business is, the first thing you're in is the money-making business. And that has extended, unfortunately, even to politics. They are in the money-making business. If they don't make money, they can't keep doing business. So that's the only reason I can see the whole character, the whole honor of being a politician has long since gone by the boards.
Frank, thank you very much for that call. I appreciate it. 617-266-6868. Ron in Lawrence, you're up next. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Basically, the reason why English is not the official language of the United States is the Democratic Party, because they don't stand for any of the values that we stand for, and they've sold their souls for a job just to keep those people voting for them. So they want the people not to learn the language because it restricts the amount of money they can make. It restricts where they can even live. And that only benefits one party, the Democratic Party, which is a natural enemy of the United States. It's not the party of Scoop Jackson. Those people, that was a Democratic Party. It's not Harry Truman. These people are Marxist, communist, right, traitors. And that's all I have to say.
Ron, thank you very much. Look, just for the sake of argument, okay? Let's leave illegal immigration just for the moment, okay? Let's just take that off the table. All right, let's just talk legal immigration. You immigrate, say, from Guatemala. Okay, you immigrate here legally. Why would you want your daughter to not learn the English language? How does this not help her in every way? You're stunting her by just having her, let's say, proficient in Spanish. Would say, let's say, for the sake of argument, English as a weak second language. How is she going to excel in school? How is she going to go to college? How is she going to be able to have a good job? How is she going to be able to pay, let's say, and raise a family and pay for them and make a good living? You have to be able to function in English. Yeah, you come from Mother Russia, okay? There's a big little Russian community, Little Russia in New York. Really, you could function in Russian. You could. If you wanted to, you could function in that little enclave up in New York. You really could. You could eat Russian food. You could read Russian newspapers, literally, from the homeland. And maybe even get some kind of a janitor job or cleaning toilets or whatever it is, working as a cook in the back. You could maybe even make your way. Okay, leave aside the welfare. But why would you want to do that? You're stunting yourself. You're crippling yourself. And so one of the things we did instinctively, naturally, we didn't need a law, it was just done, is when all the immigrants came, okay, in the previous waves, whether they came from Italy, whether they came from Southern or Eastern Europe, whether they came from China, whether they came from Asia, it didn't matter where they came from. They were instinctively told and taught English. They were told, in America, you speak English. And that's why so many of them immediately not only became assimilated, but quickly rose through the ranks of American society. What you're now seeing is the drive for bilingualism. In California, they want Spanish elevated to the same level as English. They want it in Texas. They want it in New Mexico. They want it in New Jersey. They want it in New York. Here, okay, Massachusetts, top 10 on the list. I challenge you, go through Chelsea. I'm being serious. Drive through Chelsea. Tell me if you hear English. Good luck. Go through Framingham. There it's Spanish and Portuguese because there's a big illegal Brazilian community. But I'm telling you, it was a year ago. For whatever reason, I had business in Framingham. I'm driving through Framingham. I'm like, am I in Brazil or am I in Mexico? I can't tell because I got signs up in Spanish and signs up in Portuguese. I feel like a foreigner in my own country. I couldn't see one freaking sign in English. So I ask you, how are they going to be assimilated? And if we can't even share a common language, we don't even share a country. And I think it's ultimately part of the Democrats' plan to divide and conquer. Should English be the official language of the United States? Should we now make it a law? I say yes. What do you say? All of your calls next. 2:57 here on the great WRKO. All right, really good text. This is from 857. Jeff. My grandparents came to New York City in the 1920s from Sicily. When my mom was born in 1928, they made sure she learned English right away and speak Italian only at home. When they passed, my mom slowly lost her fluency in Italian. That's exactly what happened to me. My parents encouraged me to speak English all the time, but my mother, because she wasn't that fluent in English, so I spoke with her in Croatian at home. But over the years, she got better in English, and I lost my fluent Croatian. It's how it used to be done. Now, forget it. Now you're considered a racist for saying people should speak English. Maria in Boston. I've got a minute. The floor is yours. Go.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Great job today.
Thank you.
I bought a house in Canada a few years ago, and I looked into Canadian citizenship just in case I wanted to, escape Obama land. And under Canada, which in order for citizenship, you need to speak, read, and write in French.
Yes.
Why aren't we doing the same thing? I don't understand.
You're completely right. We should. We should. And Maria, thank you for that call. Look, there's a stunning case. A woman in California cannot read or write a single word in English. She was given citizenship. Whoa, 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 whoa. If you can't read, write, and understand English, you should not be allowed to be a citizen of the United States. Full stop. No parle anglais, blank off.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 3 o'clock.